I think it was mentioned earlier this morning that as a researcher, you can't just come down here and say, I'm here to give you all this knowledge and assume they know nothing, because they know a lot. You might be surprised at how sophisticated the grower community is here at addressing all these challenges and the things they've already tried to solve them, and whether it was ineffective or whether it was economically didn't make sense or whatever, but they've tried a lot. And then also the idea of introducing new ideas, new tools, needs to be done with an understanding of how these businesses operate. So being sensitive to all that. So our panel, we have a great panel. To my right is Mark Smith. He's the president of Smith Farms Company of Yuma. He's gonna focus in on water and irrigation issues. And then we have Hank Auza. He's the farm manager for Barkley Ag Enterprises. He's going to focus on soil health, those issues. And we have Steve Alameda. He is the co-president of Top Flavor Farms, I'm told. He's going to focus on technology that's being implemented in ag. And then last at the end is Matt McGuire. He's the chief agricultural officer for J.V. Smith Companies, and he's going to focus on plant disease. So we'll mix it up and ask Matt to go first.
So they've asked me to talk a little bit about plant diseases and our interaction with YCEDA. You know, the first part of this whole puzzle is identify the problem. So what really came about with YCEDA was fusarium. We were starting to melt down. It's been around here in this area for about 20 years now, longer up in Salinas and other areas. But it was really coming home to roost and starting to melt down crops. So in conjunction with the university, we set up a field that we knew was hot with fusarium. Ott Farms also set up a secondary field out in the Welton area, and we started trialing things that we thought would kill the disease. And we tried stuff culturally, we tried things chemically, we tried things biologically, and we tried things genetically. And so far, we've found a lot of things that don't work, and we have found some genetics that do work. And the industry is gaining on them. And with that knowledge that's been found out there, particularly genetically, the seed breeders have been able to take some of that and propagate. Because when we asked the original question, you know, we have a problem, fusarium. What do you as researchers, breeders, need to solve this problem for them? The biggest problem, even Salinas that had been dealing with fusarium for a long time, they didn't have any fusarium hot fields. They would put it in grower fields, and the field might get fusarium, the field might not get fusarium. So very, very slow process. So we took one of our hot fields. It's still hot. It's had fusarium trials in it. We've done nothing to get rid of the fusarium, have not rotated out, and we're providing it to the researchers to do research work. And that's kind of this collaboration that's going on with the university, with researchers, with industry. And like I said, Ott Farms, they've done the same thing with the secondary field. So that's where we've been on this one problem through the years now. And like I said, we found a lot of things that don't work. Haven't found a biological, haven't found a chemical, haven't found a cover crop, haven't found a cultural practice. I mean, we've deep plowed fields 36 inches deep, flipped over the soil to try to get rid of fusarium. It didn't. It grew just fine. Dozens of cover crops, but we keep trying. There's something out there, and it may be something that just makes it a bit better, because one of the things we've learned about genetics now is there are genetic resistant varieties out there. But what we're seeing, particularly this year, particularly during our hot stress periods, the field's green. All the heads made it. All the plants made it. Versus in the past, the whole field would melt down to brown leaves. It'd be worthless. So we got nice green fields. But as we cut the roots, the plants have fusarium. And a lot of those plants now are exhibiting signs like non-headers, like they have a tendency to send cedars up. So we're working now, okay, now We got resistant varieties. Now how do the breeders get these other problems out of it? Because we got heads out there in the same field that the plant's infected, but it goes ahead and makes a head nice head. So they have more breeding to do. Other plant diseases that we're working on or have worked in the past, tomato bushy stunt, that one's pretty much been solved with genetics. We have INSV, John Palumbo, and the group down there has worked real hard to figure out where it's coming from, because it has to come from an infected plant originally. How to fight it off is don't let it get into western flower thrip. Don't let it get into host plants, which there are 400 of them around that have been identified. Luckily for us, they've actually shown that alfalfa doesn't carry it through, and we have a great break in the cycle for INSV, and that we have these really hot summers down there that tends to kill everything on earth. So as long as we keep our weeds free and clear during the summertime and break the cycle, all we have to worry about is transplants coming down from Salinas. So those are some of the other soil diseases we're working on. There are soil diseases that have become less of a problem. Sclerotinia, verticillium is a big problem up in Salinas. Hasn't transferred down here. Might be the summers. Never done much work on it, but it might be a problem out there lurking to come get us someday. Paul?
Thank you, Matt. Why don't you just put it down the line? We'll have Steve talk about technology, and some people say he doesn't know how to turn on a computer, but he was involved early on with the...
You're correct. You're correct with that statement.
But involved early on with the automated thinning and some of the automation that's come here. That's what I know of.
I do have experience with that, and I, as the topic was presented to me, it was what can YCEDA do in terms of, in my topic, technology. And when we talk about technology, in the field technology, I guess is what we're talking about. I thought about it. Paul asked me last week and put a pretty good amount of time thinking about this. And this is sort of negative when it comes to this. I really have a hard time, or in my experience, a lot of forward motion in terms of these things with collaboration. It always seems it takes one idiot who's able to garner enough money and go with somebody and go forward with it. You put too many people, too much input into these things, they tend to stall. It paralyzes it. And I think in terms of where YCEDA can be of the most assistance, or U of A, whoever, whatever, in terms of assisting or trialing or whatever, basically what kind of what's been going on right now. These things they're expensive. They're definitely prone to failure. I mean, I can vouch for that. Whew. The learning curve is expensive as hell, and not only expensive to make it. When you destroy something with it, that gets expensive too. So it's and I'm talking in terms of the thinner that thinner technology that's going on now. There's a lot of other things out there. I could pass this mic to Matt very easy right now. He's got bigger and better ones going on now, just because we've spent a lot of money on these things and they're out there running the field doesn't mean that they're going to be long lived, or that that's just generation one. This thinning thing, the thinner, 3, 4, 5th generation is what we're looking at now, and still questioning what happens to us every day with the doggone things. I think one of the things that impedes our technological advance is the fact that we still have people. We still have that option. As expensive as it is, and as onerous as it is, we still have that option. The H2A program may be partially to blame for our lack of having to do it. we're still in comparison to people in terms of harvesting technology. I don't know. There's been so many runs at that different, trying to handle heads, trying to do different things. It's ridiculous. It always falls back to the people. You can do a better job with people. If we didn't have the people, maybe people would be more accepting of a lesser product. I don't know. So that's one of the things that goes on down here is we still have labor, as expensive as it is. It's still an option. So I don't know when I say where YCEDA should fit into this picture. Assisting, trialing, demoing, however you want to look at it. Probably to me is a place to stay to try to get geared up and actually have a technological department that's doing. It's Mark Siemens. He can vouch for that. He was at the forefront of the thinner thing. Here he is doing his own thing down there with U of A, developing a nice thinner and everything. And geez, everybody's pressuring him to get going, do this, do that, get pulled in all directions. And he's just down there trying to hide and work this thing out. And it was a frustrating thing for me to watch him have to make progress. That thing when everybody's trying to push him out the door with it before it was ready to go. So it's just the nature of the beast. But anyway, I think that's all I got.
Okay. Hank, we asked Hank to speak about soil health, and that's something becoming more and more of an issue here, I think. So, and turns out they've done a lot on that.
Yeah, soil health is something that you have to work on every single day. As hard as we push our farms here in this area, we can't not forget to help heal those soils, because everything we do from the beginning of land prep through the end of the produce crop, it's wet to some degree. So we're always compacting, getting all the oxygen out of the soil pores. And you do this for 6 months. And then as soon as that produce crop is done, you go jam your wheat in or your melons in or your secondary crop. And so you're always pushing this soil. And early on, we had a lot of disease problems. Big vein and sclerotinia were two of the biggest ones. And it comes with, first off, with lack of rotation. Big iceberg and romaine back to back to back for years and years and years, and you just start building up these diseases. And we picked up a farm. It's actually the first turnout in the Welton Mohawk, 15, 18 years ago. And it had every disease in the book, including weeds. And instead of asking for permission, I just went ahead and did it. I started putting 10 tons of compost and running a lot of sulfuric acid on it. And after about 5 or 6 years, the field was healed. And that was the only difference that we did on that. And so I started doing it on everything around. And with the amount of tractor work we do, the amount that we're in the mud most of the time, we beat up this ground pretty bad, so you have to put something back into that to help heal and put back in what we've depleted. And there's several other things that we do along the way to help the soil health and tilth. And every ranch, every valley, and even within the valleys, you have different soil textures, soil types. So you're always having to treat each individual block to its personality, which some of them have split personality, some of them are the same. And so you're always and not every ranch has the same remedy. You can't just blanket the whole thing. So we're always pulling samples, looking for organics, looking for salts, looking for whatever it is that can help that certain situation out. And it's an ongoing thing. It's something you don't ever quit doing. And we've had researchers, we've had snake oil salesmen, we've had all kinds of people trying to come and fix or say they have the fix, and they throw you a 500-gallon drum and charge you $30 a gallon for it and leave, and they expect us to follow through with the research. Well, I'm not set up as a research firm. I'm set up as production ag. And so those are some of the struggles we've had with chemical sales and certain researchers. They'll come in, start a research program, we'll give them the block, here it is, and they go do something, and then we never hear from them again. And so a lot of that we've learned to deal with has been our own trial and error, trying different things, spending a lot of money doing it, and there is no single silver bullet for soil health. It's not what you do, it's everything you do.
Perfect. We asked Mark Smith to talk about water and irrigation.
All right, I'm going to talk a little about water, but before I start that, I just want to say about 5 years ago, met with Paul, and we met with different researchers over time, and they explained some of their science to us, what they could do, and how, and we think, well, that might help us. And so we said, we need to get these researchers down to Yuma, and as you guys all point out, do you guys know how far it is from Tucson to Yuma? And we go, yeah, it's almost exactly the same distance it is from Yuma to Tucson. So, so yeah, we do know, and so we know it's a long drive. We figured out, so we initially got about, as they point out earlier in the meeting, about 6 or 7 of them down, and showed them what we had and the opportunities we had for research, and research that truly would affect not only our area, but could have national or global ramifications on research done here. And so from there, we've got what we have today. And that's just exciting for us as an industry to have you all that drove from Tucson down to here, because we know how far it is, to take a look at our industry, and because we don't know what we don't know. And if we don't know that there's research out there that could help us, we don't even know what questions to ask. So your interactions with us, you can come down more often now, or we can come up there. If you have research you think that is applicable to our industries, we are interested in looking at that, because that's real important to us, because it can be adapted to it. I remember a researcher told me, he says, if you give us enough money, we can pretty much solve anything. And I believe that. It's to see the bioscience people here, and the soil science people here, and the engineers here, and computer science people. You collaborate together, you can solve a lot of problems. So, I'm very excited to see that. When we started out this program, Jane Burgess told us, Robbie, myself, Vic, how this is going to be lined up. And he says, so we really want YCEDA to look at short-term projects, stuff that we need solutions right now for the industry. We want mid-term projects, and then we want projects that push the level of science that we know today. So as you're a researcher out there, and whatever area you want to work in, we are focused on all three, because we do have to push the science we don't know today. And that's kind of where we're at on the water issues here. And so just a little background on Yuma's water. We have the Colorado River rights. We have senior water rights on the river, but everyone knows the hydrology of the river system. There are going to be cutbacks on the river system. That's going to happen. It's going to happen pretty quick in the lower basin, and then they have to work on some stuff in the upper basin. There's not any resolution to that. So we all, as water users, even though we have senior water rights, we have a responsibility, because the crop we grow, it's food security for the nation. When you're servicing the entire nation with your product, you have a responsibility to make this work. And so Yuma, we basically have 6 districts in the area, all combination of different water rights, so it's very complicated how it all works. But we have good water rights, but when you don't have as much water coming down the river, there's going to be a reduction. So we have to figure out how to deal with that. So the good news is Yuma has spent about the last 40 years improving its use of its water. And we know that from studies we've done, that over that 40-year period, we doubled our yields on our crops. We've basically doubled our acres grown. We can't change the acres grown, but we went to a double cropping system instead of a single cropping system. And we increased our economic values about 700-800%. And we reduced our overall water usage about 15 to 18%. And that's over the entire area. That's not on just one farm. So that's a huge improvement of any irrigation systems. And I know a number of you have looked at our systems, and we've achieved an 85 to 90% efficiency for surface irrigation, and that's pushing the limits of science. Matter of fact, sees what they said we could do, but that's what we do. What we're faced with is there's going to be less water, and we're going to have to figure out how to continue to grow the crops we grow, to serve the entire nation with the crops. And we feel that with the science that we already use and the technologies we use and your help, we're going to continue. We don't have a choice but to succeed. And as every one of these pointed out, we use science and technology in everything we do. So we're comfortable with it, familiar with it, ready to embrace it if it works. And so that's what we're looking forward with your help on that. And it's not just the application of water. As Hank points out, soil health is a big part of what we're doing. We finished up the study that Dr. Sanchez and Dr. French did with the water salinity and salt balance study. That's a major study to do because that measures where our salts are. Salts are a big issue for us in the use of our water in our farming systems here. We're at the lower end of the Colorado River, so we accumulate water or salt as it comes down the river. We have about 700 to 800 parts of TDS per in the water. So that's about a ton of salt per acre foot of water. So we use about 5 acre foot of water here per year, so you can do the math on how much salt. So we have to manage that salt. We have to mitigate that and figure out how to deal with that. So soil health is a big part of that. If our soil health is we don't keep it under control, we end up additional issues, as Matt points out, with disease problems. So all of this is all linked. There's nothing that's not linked to the next thing. So clearly water management is a critical part of it. And one of the problems, we've already got to a point that we're not leaching all our salts, and so soil health is a key component of that. So we're kind of like right now, we use the term we're standing on a bowling ball. Everything, we've got to such a level that if we get a little bit off, we can fall off and hurt ourselves. So if we cut our water in the wrong place, it'll cause salinity problems, which reduce our soil health, which increases our disease problems, and that increases your fertilizer usage. You start having this negative effect. So we need to use science. We need to use technology to make sure if we have to make changes, we make the right decisions and the right changes so we don't go backwards.
I want to ask about economic challenges. So I know Hank had really opened my eyes on some economic issues having to do with soil health and just how that plays into it, the reality of trying to adopt something, or the willingness to try to adopt something, or something that's going to have long-term returns. So Hank, could you share, and maybe Mark, you could give him that mic, how that worked with soil health?
Well, we're all in here for economics. If we don't make money, we don't exist. And so if all 4 of these topics are work together, they're all intermixed. We don't have one without the other. And to do all these things, it's expensive. And so we have to get every pound, every carton, every box, every bin out of an acre that we can to help pay for these things. And if you don't have the water, you don't have the soil, you don't have the technology, and you don't have disease packages, none of this works. And none of us make money. And there's money to be made in each of these steps. And so as people from the outside look at us as, oh, those rich farmers over there. Well, these rich farmers take huge risks every day. We supply 85% of the nation's leafy greens from basically now through the end of March, the entire North America. And there's only about 25 of us that do it down here. So more than likely, it didn't matter where you have traveled to, you've eaten product that one of us has grown, if you've eaten a salad. And so economic issues for this industry are huge. They're not just a Yuma issue, they're a national issue. And so it's all about economics. It doesn't matter what step of the process you're in. If we don't have water, we don't have good land prep, we don't have good soil health, we don't have good varieties, we don't have coolers, we don't have trucks, we don't have grocery stores, we don't have processors, you can't eat the salad that you had in there today. And so it's not just iceberg lettuce. It's an industry and it's feeding the nation.
You know, what I was remembering, Hank, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but on soil health in particular, you'd done a lot of things and you believed in them, but they didn't pay off for 5-10 years down the road, and you couldn't get shippers who have the contracts with you to allocate the extra money that it costs to do those practices.
Yeah, a lot of times when you try these new things and they're not proven in science, they're me out there doing it, and it costs an extra $100 an acre to do it, and you don't see it that first year, but then you see it the second year and you start seeing that economic value. It takes a little bit of time for those things to work into the soil and soil health to be able to get to the people you're growing the product for to actually pay for it, because they don't want to pay for it until you can prove that it works.
Makes sense. Any other economic thoughts on new ideas, new tools, new research?
Yeah, I think automation technology is really key to our industry to stay competitive with the rest of the world and to deal with labor shortages and other challenges out there. So I think Yuma is uniquely positioned to deal with any new technologies. Part of it is a lot of agriculture, they're very difficult to change. They've been doing it that way for generations, and they're not that interested in changing what they're doing. If it's working, why change? We're in an extremely competitive environment here, and it's a very high-value crop system. And as Hank points out, the smallest dollar gets criticized pretty closely. So the future of that is technology. We use a lot of technology. We'd like to use more. So I think that's the key to us to deal with the challenges moving forward is science and technology to solve those problems.
And by the way, what I've observed here is, I know a lot of people think agriculture is kind of technology averse, and I've found the opposite. But agriculture is a very difficult place to implement technology, and so it's got to pencil out, it's got to show its value, and then they're very open to using new technologies, new ways of doing things. I got plenty more questions I can ask, but are there? Oh, Steve, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, add on to what Mark said. It may the problem is investing, because it probably doesn't pay today. You can put people out there and do it. We're preparing for what's coming, just like the water. Prepare for what's coming, and with the people thing, that's expensive. Not only you have an option to go with people that it's probably the same or less, in terms of cost per acre. So you have to force yourself to reach out and try these things, because you know that they're going to get more expensive and they're going to get less available. So it's an investment that we make, and whether it's technology or anything, any of these things, it's an investment that we have to make, and that's expensive. And to get your shipper to buy into that, that additional 100, 150, 200, whatever it is an acre, that doesn't go over big. So it's something that we do just because we do it, and it's fun too. So that's the good part.
Here, Steve. And the other thing, when it comes to technology, we've all been through different iterations of different equipment, different software, different programs. So there's big fancy technology, whether it be the thinners or the drones or the laser weeders we're starting to trial out now. And then there's those more mundane things they're not real fun to come out and show people on the field. Yeah, there's a sensor in the ground. And this is how we're integrating it into the in-house software programs to see if we can water better, to see if we can fertilize better. So it doesn't have to be a big fancy program. The other thing we have to keep in mind, like these guys say, it takes 2 or 3 years on the field to try to get it right. And until we get it right, we're absorbing those extra costs. The other thing we're absorbing is, as we found with technology, is becoming obsolete in 3 or 4 years. It's not like buying a ripper that you keep for the next 35 years and you use it on the field. My original thinner is in the boneyard. There's $175,000 sitting back there that worked about 3 years before the next generation of $350,000 thinner came along that works a whole lot better. And then the third generation thinners are $450,000, and they work a little bit better yet. But these new technologies, when you get into this past iron, they become obsolete fairly fast. So that's why it's more important for for researchers to come about and develop these technologies quickly, because if it's kind of procrastinated around, chances are the world's going to pass you up before you perfect your technology in an academic setting.
So just to add to that, so Matt didn't mention what the new automated weeders are. They just skip those first interim deals. They're just starting out about $1.5 million. So you can see the cost of the technology. The one thing I wanted to add to it, I know I talked to some of you yesterday. So Yuma County has invested in a broadband system. And I know some of you are tired of hearing this from me, but we put in one of the most robust broadband systems that exist. They're putting in 150 miles, what we call the middle mile, or the backbone system. And so we'll have connectivity over the entire county once we get that system built. So that's going to assist us in all research. The ultimate goal is to not only have fiber connection to all the shops, offices, farms, homes in the entire farming area, but also to wire up the entire agriculture area with high-speed broadband and wireless system, 5G or millimeter bandwidth system. So with direct connect to the fiber system. So all the AI, robotics, stuff that was coming down, we'll be able to service that, access that, and we should have one of the most robust systems that exist in the world, to have 160,000 acres under that type of system. So as researchers, that makes sensor technology, anything you want to put out there is going to be much cheaper and much more accessible and much more usable for us to even just have, as he points out, simple sensors to check water levels in ditches. So as things move up and down, anything to manage things better, it's going to be much cheaper to deal with that. So that's another huge investment that the Yuma County and Yuma area is putting into our agriculture system.
Got one. Lots of questions. We'll start back there.
It's generational. My dad was a doctor. He told me don't go into medicine. So I went into ag. Now I'm telling my kids, don't go into ag, go into medicine. So.
We're going to go to the other question. We've got a lot right here.
So I'm wondering, as researchers, we don't like to believe anything unless we have replication, right? So when you're trialing something yourselves, how do you prove to yourself to say, oh, this did something for us, it gave us a little bit of a bump? Maybe not in the case of that field where it was like a dramatic difference, but say, we tried something and it improves things a little bit.
Well,
Right.
the best thing you can put in your field is your shadow. And so when you do those things and you're in those fields a lot, and I've been running this place for 28 years now, so I've seen a lot of change. And so the personalities of each of those blocks. And so when you put something else out there and it works, it shows up, it sticks out pretty apparent. There's things that we do that do take longer to progress, but it takes time, and it takes you being actually in the field and keeping records on your yield, your qualities, your tonnage, whatever the case may be, whatever your wheat yield is in that field, and look at it over the last several years. What we're doing, has it helped increase productivity? And so those are the ways that I do it. And when we have researchers come and want to do stuff, we just say, here's a field, go for it, and you give me the numbers on what you see, and I'll give it my visual and see if I see the same things what you're coming up with.
I think that's a good point, and we all do the same thing, and it takes us years to see that change. I mean, it's just a feeling, oh, geez, that looks a lot better now than it did 5 years ago. But hopefully through research, you can do it tomorrow, or you can do it next. You can tell me if I'm doing any better in 6 months or whatever. Cut that time period down for me. But I know exactly what Hank's thinking. It's a general feeling you get. You're just watching your ground work and the tilth that changes, or whatever you're looking for. Fertility. So hopefully through research you cut that time down, and you give us good solid numbers as opposed to our seat of the pants method. It works, but it takes a while. So, anyway.
Yeah, I want to add to that. That's exactly right. That's what, as they point out.
That's the first time you've ever told me that, period. I've never heard
That's the first time you've been right, Steve.
Never heard that from you.
Known you a long time.
He wasn't talking to you.
He must not have been.
As they point out, we've done this. It may take 10 years to figure out if that's right. How many things do we have to do wrong for 10 years? And that's expensive. That's why having you sitting here to be able to use your science and your research to take something that might take us 5 or 6 years that you can do in 1 or 2. Or you can tell us, no, science, you're going down the wrong path. Don't waste your time. Go over here. So that's exactly why we need your help, because we don't have that time any longer.
And YCEDA was really a godsend. When we started on Fusarium trialing, we didn't have scientific replication, 3 replications and a control with it. We were putting trials out all over the place. Information was coming in from this corner and that corner, and we were getting seed breeders. Oh yeah, this one has Fusarium resistant. Oh good, we better go more with this one. Next year planted, the whole field would be gone. Put this bugs in a jug on this crop and you'd solve all your problems. It did nothing. So now with research going on and with YCEDA's help, we've sped all that up. We've given a plot. Some of these researchers, they have the exact same plot year after year, so they can trial whether compost or date paste or whatever selection of trichoderma or bacillus they've just picked out of the air is going to be effective, and they go back to back. Some of these things we hope to work right now, and some of these things, the thought is it might take a little longer and build up the soil. So that's where you guys would come in and taking that whole burden off of us and presented it in a non-biased way. You guys don't, hey, if it doesn't work and and you tell us it doesn't work or publish a paper, it doesn't work, hey, no harm, no foul, nothing ventured, nothing gained. As if I get somebody from the industry, a seed producer, chemical manufacturer, trust me, everything that comes out according to them always works, you know.
Over here. Oh, sorry.
Matt, just answer the question I had. Because you're talking about technique and water management, soil and diseases. We're just wondering, every crop come up with a good seed. Just wondering what kind of need about the breeders of developing the good seeds, good varieties for the farm here. Because I conducted all kind of trials of over 100 different crops in Maricopa Ag Center. I fear it's the different, much more different compared to what I used to be in Minnesota. So something grows so well there and then just don't do well here. Someone did so well here, just not that crop that is very good for Minnesota. So just wonder what kind of demand or the interest from the grower side about the germplasm.
With it, there's a need to identify germplasm, in my mind, that has for fusarium resistance. More importantly, is for both the breeders and the scientific community to get together. And I know Stephanie's working on, or has been working on, taking samples the last couple years all over the Yuma area to figure out if there's differences in the fusarium that we have. Yeah, it's all race 1 according to the differential plant differentials, but what are the genetic differentials? The plant breeders, particularly out of UC Davis, used to get a lot of germplasm, and they had markers with them, and so they could crossbreed. And now with technology, and they have to use to grow all those plants out. So it was a year and a half. Used to say it took 5-6 years to produce a new plant. We're now encouraging researchers to identify plant markers where this newfound fusarium resistant is coming from. If we have markers, we do 10, 100,000 crosses in a day, run it through a DNA lab, throw out 999% of them, and keep those 4 and move them forward within months. And so there's still a lot of need in the industry, and it's moving fast. And us as growers have to encourage that, and you have researchers got to catch up to what the industry needs.
So when you're flushing salts, what is the target mark that you're shooting for when you're flushing salts from soils? Is it TDSEC, and is there a mark on it? Is it infiltration rate?
Do you know?
Short answer is we can get it down to what the river is. That'd be great. Yeah, I mean, Mark touched on how salty the river is. I don't think we have much hope to get it better than the river.
We ultimately, and this is parts we don't understand clearly, of the relationship of the salinity to the soil health. So we need an overall better understanding of that. And because as the river goes down, the river picks up salt from inflows into the river plus evaporation. So if there's less water flowing down that river, the probability is the salinity in the river is going to get higher at this end of the river. So how much more is that going to affect us? And we know that you increase the salinity, you affect your soil health. So how do we manage our soil health that hopefully will help us manage our salts? And then we do a lot of farming practices from our heavy tillage operations to our general cropping patterns. We'll pre-irrigate our fields. That's our major salt leaching part of the process. And then we'll use sprinklers to germinate our crops, but that's a net salt loading event. And then after that, when we put it in the furrows with the bolas, which is the trapezoid-shaped furrow, that is a net salt loading event most of the season. There's parts of the season it has some leaching involved in it. So if we increase the salinity of the water that we're applying, how is that going to affect us? We don't know because we haven't dealt with that. But a lot of the tools we use, a lot of our cultural practices are there to mitigate the salt. The shape of our beds, the shape of those bolas, which the trapezoid shape. We do a lot of things. When we plant, we call it pizza cutter. We just make a mark down the center of the bed or in between the seed lines, and that causes salt to move towards that. How long we run our sprinklers, it's all to manage salt. So we do a lot of operations to manage salt. If we start increasing our salt, how much of that we're going to change? How much is it going to affect our soil health? If our salinity goes up, our pH goes up, then our fertilizer doesn't work as well. You get a lot of things start happening, and so we just need to make sure we have tools to manage that, and we're aware of it, and we can measure it, and make sure we don't get behind that curve.
Gianna?
Yeah, just wanted to reiterate one of Matt's comments, that it doesn't have to be the shiniest new tool, the fanciest new tool to be beneficial for industry. So I think it's important for all the academics in the room to hear that. But for those of us who are working on new technologies and new tools, we're really good at sometimes developing the technology so that it's applicable for you, but maybe some of us in the room don't always do the training and the education for the actual implementation of those tools. So maybe can you guys comment on how important that piece is, because you can have a fantastic new tool or resource, but if nobody knows how to use it, it's going to sit on a shelf and not help you.
We usually like to take a new tool, whatever it is, and break it 3 or 4 times and ruin 3 or 4 and then we'll start working towards that.
Then you'll read the directions.
Then we'll read the directions. That question, it can't possibly apply more than it does right now. And I don't, we are getting kids, I say kids, it's because I'm old, students out of college that are coming out and running these instruments that are doing this stuff. And it's working out. It's working out. The day of, the guy getting on a tractor and throwing the throttle all the way forward and running it for 12 hours a day and then getting off it, that's over. And there's too much. Actually, there's too much money to be made running that tractor with GPS guidance and overlapping exactly where it's supposed to be, and running the RPMs down as low as it can be so that it get 25-30% better fuel efficiency, and having somebody out there that understands it and doing that. You pay. They're a lot high dollar person, but you're paying for them many times over. So I don't know. I can't say you're exactly right. We need this help. Is that something? Yeah, we stumble on something there in terms of research. How do we get these operators and people that are trained to do this? And I shouldn't say trained, just capable of doing these things. It's coming at us, and I've always wondered for the day, if that would ever happen. And it's happening. And these operators are making $20, $25, $30 an hour. That's what we're paying them. It's a good living. It's a career. So anyway,
I think if you hit it on the head, the academic system goes. We need people from all walks of life. Obviously, a researcher of your capabilities is not going to come out and drive one of my tractors or run the new laser weeder. And so we're having a generational shift here. Steve touched on it. As the new tractors came about, the bigger tractors, we actually had to take our older guys that were experienced off those tractors because all they did is break them. And we had to hire newer guys. They were high school education. A lot of guys back in the era didn't have high school. Now they got to have high school. We have a lot of junior college workers because they understand technology. They know how to push buttons. But it is a big change for us older people in the room because like I got guys right now, older tractor drivers, seed rates, they'll get off the tractor and check everything behind them all the time. Young guy, I can't get off the tractor. I give him a monitor and a screen to look at. He'll drive that thing all night long. It's not a problem. It's what he likes to do. But technology is taking us over. We have drone operators now, 19 years old, FAA licenses with drone certification and spray license, now flying drones for us within the company. Shoot, man, I turn on a drone, I couldn't even get it off the ground. So those are the kind of things, the new generation's coming on, and they have to be coming through the system at all different levels to fulfill. We need software programmers that understand software. We have guys doing some of that now, but that is the future.
I think one thing's real simple. When a lot of this technology came out, as Matt points out, you have a $500,000 tractor. It has a GPS guidance system. It has you adjust all the controls that for its speed. That adjusts the engine, the RPMs, the fuel flows, the turbo boost pressure, the transmission shifting. All that has to be set. The width of your implement. And then you're pulling an implement behind you, the laser GPS leveling system that has a computer you have to set up. That was all real nice, except it was all in English. So if you think the difficulty of that, get out your iPhone, put it in some foreign language that you can't read, and then try to figure out how to do all that. That's what these guys are tasked with. Well, fortunately, it took a number of years for the manufacturers to put more than one language in the setup system. So, and so simple things like just make sure it's not in just one language for the instructions. That's one thing that really helps with technology, is have more than one language. So because not everyone speaks English or reads English.
Dr. Wing?
Yeah, hi. I just had a couple questions. One about what is the main method for removing salt from the soils? I think you kind of touched on that a little bit. And are you testing germplasm out that is more salt tolerant? Is that something you're looking at?
Our main, we get most of our salt leaching in our pre-irrigation of our crops. After
just pre-irrigation, you just flood the field and then, so you throw away a lot of water to do that?
No. So that's done at the end of our tillage season. The field's laser leveled, and so we put about 10 inches of water on it. And most of that water, some of it, obviously is leaching the salts down, but you're replenishing the soil profile because it's all dry, and so you have to replenish that, and then we do our finished prep, and then we plant the crops. So no, you need that water to replenish it, but that's also your major leaching component.
Okay. And are you testing germplasm out at all that is more salt tolerant? You guys looking at that?
That's the seed breeding side of it.
No. Really, some of the things that we do, we're kind of working in reverse at this point. A lot of the new varieties that are coming on are actually more sensitive to those things. They produce like hell. I mean, they're beautiful, but it's got to be right for them. So probably in terms of breeding, people are going to have to start heading the direction you're talking about. So, but these things, a lot of these newer varieties that are good to they're more susceptible to diseases. They need more fertilizer. Everything's got to be just right for them, and then they just produce like crazy for you. So it's just the way it's what we were asking for. They gave us what we were asking for. Now we're going to have to start asking for something else. I wanted to respond to when you said, I can't believe Mark didn't jump on it, but when you said you're just throwing that water away, it isn't. It's a necessity, and it's a leaching component, and that leaching component is anywhere from 20 to 30% of the water. That's the vehicle that moves the salt down through the soil profile. So we really combat that image that we're throwing that water away. It's necessary, and it's very hard for us to get that message across to the general public when they see all these ponds, and it's very uniform. And when we put that water out there, it's flowing across laser leveled ground and get it from one end of the field to the other end as quickly as possible. But it's setting up that crop for a environment there that's favorable to it. So anyway.
Sorry, I
You're fine, you're fine.
Yeah.
I take offense to anything. It's my specialty.
At the risk of getting Mark fired up about water, you put 10 inches on, you got a little bit of evaporation, you have a little bit of that retains in the soil profile. Then you have some that goes back down into an aquifer and gets pumped out and you get return flow credit. Okay, everybody, get ready.
That's correct. So, as he points out, some evaporates up. There's some leaches down past the root zone. The balance of it is replenishing the soil profile, which you're going to have to do anyway during the growing cycle, so that just skips that process. But because of the way of where Yuma, the farm ground, is located, it's in the river valley, and because in the floodplain of the river valley, and so the way the accounting system works and is any water that's over-applied actually returns back to the river either through a pumping system or natural recharge, and so there is no loss to the system. So although we've achieved this really high efficiency, you get there anyway because of where the farm ground is located in its proximity to the river. That just opened up a can of worms.
And I know the moderator is not supposed to answer anything, but I did want to go back to your question real quick. The level of salt leaching that they need, or the level of salt that's okay. I think what it comes down to, especially with what Steve just said, is to where it's not going to affect the crop, right? So if the crop is super sensitive, then you got to really get it leached out of there. If Rod can work some magic and get some salt tolerant crops, then you don't have to worry as much about the level of salinity. So
let me just add to that.
Give me that.
Yes, you increase the salt, you can get a crop that is more salt tolerant, but now you have issues with your soil health, you have issues with it's going to take more fertilizer. Everything's going to take more. We know that. So you try to get that at an optimum point. So even if our salinity goes up, the goal is to try to figure out how to mitigate that to keep it down. Because all your other inputs are going to go up and it's not going to work. Your whole system is not going to work as well with a higher salinity content.
And just to put it in perspective, without leaching, what are you going to have? You're going to have the Great Salt Lake. That's what you have. I've seen permanent drip installed, and in 2 years, it would not grow a crop with no leaching. 2 years. Would not grow any crop that we had here in this area. So salt has to be dealt with.
And we could go on forever. We're way over time. Stephanie's going to give me the hook here. So let's thank them and find them in the hall if you got more questions.